That is why this show was created, to break things down, to ask the questions that ordinary people ask in their homes and workplaces, and to explain governance in ways that are relatable, clear, and accessible to everyone. My name is Oluwayemi Adelako, and I'm your host for today. Today's topic is one that sits at the heart of Nigeria's identity: secular state, religious society. Can Nigeria separate faith from governance? Scholars have debated this for decades. The Enlightenment thinker John Locke argued that the head of any society depends on the separation of civil authority from spiritual authority. Yet, sociologists like Emily Durkheim insisted that religion is the soul of the society, a glue that holds people together. Nigeria stands exactly at this crossroads. Historically, nations have always struggled with this tension. In ancient empires, from Rome to Egypt, political leaders were often seen as spiritual leaders. But the rise of modern state introduced the idea of secularism, championed by philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who warned that from independence in 1960 to the adoption of Sharia court in parts of the North, from the role of missionary schools in the colonial era to the powerful influence of religious leaders on election today, our history shows a constant negotiation between state neutrality and religious identity. This conversation is more than academic. It touches everything: policy, justice, unity, women's rights, economic decisions, and even foreign relations. To help us navigate these complexities is a distinguished guest, Olumuyiwa Olusesan Famelose, a professor of social ethics and the sociology of religion, and the immediate past head of the Department of Religious Studies, University of Ibadan. Professor, it's an honor to have you this afternoon join us.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome on board.
Thank you.
So my first question to you, Professor, this afternoon, is that Nigeria constitutionally is a secular state. But then when we talk about a secular state and you look at Nigeria, you also discover that we are also religious in a sense. So how will you interpret this contradiction?
Thank you. This is an interesting matter to discuss.
Right.
What we have in the Constitution could be understood as a scholar has argued in respect of this in a paper titled Between Theory and Practice: An Examination of the Role of the Status of Religion in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is not expressly stated that Nigeria is a secular state, but it is implied because of what we have in some section. That is, they can be voted for. And that is why we make mistake of prioritizing religion in the matter of politics. Sometimes we abandon competence. We focus on religious affiliation. Whether somebody has done it before, somebody has been tested before or not, so far the fellow belongs to my religion, I will say he or she is my candidate. But we cannot separate religion from politics because religion itself is political.
In what sense?
In many senses, as the case may be, if that is allowed. Where 2 or 3 people are gathered, God is there. That is the Bible. But where 2 or 3 people are gathered, there is politics. The one who is not around or present will be discussed. When he or she comes in, it will be as if nothing has been discussed. Even within the family, there is politics. Between the father and the children, between the mother and the children, and all these things are there for us to understand. What we are saying is that politics is everywhere. Some major religious scholars like J.S. Mbiti and Bolaji Idowu are of the opinion that Africans are notoriously religious, and that's J.S. Mbiti. And Idowu is of the opinion that in all things Africans are religious. I want to say that human beings are notoriously political. There is politics in everything, including religion. You know, even in religions, so to say, leaders emerge. How would leaders emerge without politics?
But comparing both now, will you say that the politics in the family is more healthy than the one we see in
It depends on the perspective.
Okay.
If somebody comes from maybe a polygamous family, It is the fellow that will tell whether the politics is healthy or not. Politics is politics. And I want us to ignore an impression that politics is a dirty game.
Why?
Well, I was at a program many years ago,
Okay.
and a bishop, still living, that's Archbishop Ladigbolu. In every profession, there are good eggs, good in its entirety, but some politicians are dirty in their conduct. That is why politics is misunderstood as a dirty game. And as long as it is misunderstood as a dirty game. And as long as it is misunderstood as a dirty game, clean people will be running away from it. And bad people will be leading us. They will be complaining. Some people will even stay away from voting. They don't want their integrity to be soiled, this and that. So as long as we continue doing that, the future is bleak.
Okay, something happened recently. INEC released a timetable for the elections, the coming elections, and then, of course, some group actually came out to say we are not going to accept the timetable.
Whether we are in a secular society, as they are claiming, we still have to respect the sensibility. The government must be sensitive to the yearning of others, and they have the right to express their feelings.
Okay, something similar actually happened, and then the reason why I'm going to make reference to it is because Nigerians are saying once you open door for a certain situation, other things will always come in. And then something similar happened when the president appointed the INEC chairman, Judge Joash Amukwito, who is a Christian. A particular Muslim group came out to say they are not going to accept his appointment. Why? Because of certain things he said in the past in his write-up, about Christians and Muslims.
Where there will always be complaints, people will always want things to go their own way. But the president or the government cannot address everything. We can, if somebody, as you rightly said, if somebody says this today, the fellow, that request is granted. There will be more requests. But all I know is that the president did not do anything.
We are not developing, and that's why we are still a third world country. And then they try to compare us to other Western countries. We are not so concerned about religion. So do you think religion is a blessing or a curse on politics in Nigeria?
Well, it is like a scholar argues that religion at Awulalu, religion is oil that lubricates politics. If religion is well utilized, do this, don't do that, don't get engaged in malpractice, don't get engaged in violence. If you are into politics, don't get engaged in violence. If you are into politics, behave as Muslim. If they obey every Islamic injunctions, it is supposed to be a blessing. For instance, Nigeria is a country of highly religious people. If you bring 500 people together, hardly will you see 5 who will claim to be atheists. So some people, sometimes Christians are Christians on Sunday, something else on Monday. But how are we utilized? When you dip it into a pot of stew, it drains it. The Yoruba Bible will say, well, if we break the cowaje of religion and politics. And when we think this fellow must be voted for another 4 years, some people see it as a cheap way of getting votes from unsuspecting Nigerians.
Okay, so you mentioned something about loaf of bread and, of course, stew. So I want to ask these questions. Because if you go online now, some Nigerians will tell you that, why is it that religious leaders love to endorse politicians?
A religious leader says, don't vote for this candidate. If you vote for him or her, you will go to hell. And this and that. That is because it will become a burden. And that is why maybe I shouldn't say, but let me say, maybe we have some so-called food is ready problem many years back. If you vote for this candidate, you'll be shown the way to hell. And in his or her territory, let me put it like that, the political party, the fellow spoke against one. They are supposed to be fathers of all. They should stop, ideally, at least is to stop openly and
to order, according to some Nigerians, because of the advantages that they are gaining. And so they feel like, okay, if I call this person to order now, how am I supposed to visit this person if I need anything, in the future?
that is why we may still understand that even some leaders themselves, maybe they have interests in what former Governor Fayemi described as stomach infrastructure in 2014 in Ekiti. So they too, maybe they need support from the government, and some of them, if the government in power is in their good book, or they indirectly belong to the party in power, then they have no choice but to become an apologist of that government. So anything that government does is good. But if it's the opposition, something else. And that is the human in us. We may not blame those people. They may be men of God, but they are not God. There is a difference between a man of God and God. There are so many things men of God will do that God will never do. I wouldn't know if God will say, this is my candidate. But a man of God could say that. If a man of God says that, then the followers also have their own sense of reasoning to say, well, that the Jew or my father and the Lord has said this. My own opinion is that this is my own position in respect of this.
Okay, just before we continue, you said something, and that's why I would love us to listen to the opinions of the people just before we continue. And I would love us to listen to them and then what they have to say about this particular matter.
Religions and politics are not the same. But in Nigeria, we tend to marry them together. Who is going to give you that privilege or privileges? If it's a Muslim, you have to be a Muslim. If it's a Christian, then you have to be a Christian. That is where you cannot really differentiate religion and politics in Nigeria. Religion has not really helped politics. Rather, it is causing issues. Most of the issues we have in Nigeria is because of religion, vice versa.
Because of poverty, we have drafted everything into religion. And they go and promise them based on what they want to hear. By the time they get promised,
it's something we can't separate because it's what they taught us from the church and the politics. I think they work together, like to mobilize people, to engage people in community, to let them know what next to do in the environment. So in area of mobilization, politics work with religion.
To speak to those comments, because a lot of them are saying because Nigeria is a poor country, so it's easy for the politicians to just use that poverty, they weaponize it, and they ensure that they get what they need. Do you agree?
You will agree with me that all the points raised are no different from what I've said. Religion is central to everything, to politics. Even on campuses, there is religion in student politics. Every poverty blindfolds. What my Bible tells us, create poverty. But total eradication, then we will no longer believe in God if everybody is wealthy. Even some people have poverty mentality that even when they have money, they still behave like somebody, like those who are poverty-stricken. Wouldn't it have been political talks if they are gainfully employed? That's one thing. Now, let government provide job. Let those people who go, there will be employers of labor. They will try to do that, but no patronage. So not that people are lazy. But to say that poverty will be eradicated, we can only talk in terms of it being alleviated, not total eradication. God created us in different ways. Some people will not appreciate poverty if they do not see those who are wealthy. Those who are wealthy will not understand if they do not come across those who are poverty-stricken. Especially those who have been victims of poverty before. They are now wealthy. Then if they are sensible, they will know what it means to be poor. And therefore, they will behave well.
Okay, just I want us to take this question just before we go on a break. How much of religion do you think contributes to insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, you know, because of politics again, religion is a major factor in insecurity. And one would go back to what the Constitution says, or what people think in terms of the secular nature of Nigeria. If we are actually in a secular society, I'm practicing my Christianity, my friend is practicing his Islam, the other friend is practicing his traditional religion and other religions that we have around. If we behave according to what is stated in the Constitution, then there will not be any problem. But because the Constitution is roundly violated, ignored, where religion is not necessary, we bring it in, then insecurity will be a problem. That's what our forefathers, especially in the Southwest, did not experience. There are places where Christians and Muslims. I had a PhD student who work on religious harmony in a particular community. I won't mention the community. But in that community, Christians and Muslims work together. Even if a mosque is organizing fundraising, pastor will come there to contribute money. And at the end of the day, there is high level of development because of the peace that is reigning in that environment. So that is the point.
All right, I get that point. You mentioned traditional religion. I'd love us to talk about that when we come back,
Okay.
After this break. We take a short break now when we went. Please stay with us.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at Dominion Casts.
I welcome you back. Thank you for staying with us. I see our Professor Familisi here with me in the studio. And then you mentioned something about traditional religion. And I recall that Domi said, okay, it's fine. Some Muslims were actually against it. And some Christians also came out to say, we are not going to allow this. Nigeria is secular, but it's also religious. Why should you come out with a Muslim ticket? So my question now is, why is it that the traditional religion is not as loud, compared to other religions in Nigeria?
Thank you. In the first instance, if we are actually in a secular society, the Muslim ticket wouldn't have caused any problem. But that suggests that we cannot do away with religion. Now, maybe I need to explain. Many of those who patronize traditional practitioners, you probably could see them as Christians, or probably they belong to other religion during the day. Now, tomorrow, as I said, is Good Friday, public holiday. Monday, Easter Monday. Maybe around May or so, Ileya festival will come. We'll go on break for 2 days. Eid al-Maulud, the birth of Prophet Muhammad, another public holiday. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and some of these things. No official declaration of public holiday for traditional festival in Nigeria, except some states that have adopted it. They call it Isese Day. Now, traditionalists have not come out to even agitate for it. Maybe as a student of religion, there is no central point. Which religion are we going to declare public holiday for? Even in Yoruba land. Is it Ogun? Is it Sango? Is it Oya? Is it this and that? And somebody said in a particular offered. So there is no common ground among practitioners of traditional religion because of its high level of segmentation. No common point. In Nigeria, I know there is one Christianity. I know there is one Islam. In fact, an argument by J.S. Mbiti is that we cannot talk in terms of African traditional religion. How many are they? How many days of the year will be declared as public holiday while a particular festival is being celebrated? So that accounts for why African traditional religion is so quiet.
Something happened recently, and a particular Isheshe woman, her house was destroyed because some persons went to her house and told her that you are not allowed to practice this your religion in this particular environment, and they destroyed her house. She came online, she complained bitterly, but then nothing much was done to actually compensate her at the end of the day. Do you think